gave Claude full access to this ecom brand's Google Ads account and told it to build us a Google Ads strategy, and I'm starting to think that might have been a mistake. Because you see, the thing is, on the front top level view, it seemed like Claude knew what it was talking about. It went through the entire ad account, based on the prompt I gave it. It looked through all of the data we had so far. It even looked at the campaigns we currently had running, and it came back to us with what seemed like genuine concerns. Because if we look at the specific account, essentially what we did and what you can do as well is I connected Claude via the Chrome extension to our Google Ads account specifically. I told it to look at all of the data all time because this brand has been running Google Ads for a very long time. I mean, this is one of the biggest automotive e-commerce brands in the industry because we have done over $125 million all time. Of course, not all of it is attributed to our work because this brand is one of our Google Ads clients, which is running our Google Ads strategies. But in total, it has spent a lot of money on the platform, almost $9 million. So Claude had a lot of data to work with. And if we look at the actual things that Claude mentioned, because what Claude ended up doing is it gave me this massive list of specific things, which is basically called a skill.md file, which goes over the specifics of this account, how things were running, how things were bad, so on and so forth. But for the sake of this video, I told Claude to summarize all of these things. Now, what we can see here is Claude gave it all of the specific spend numbers, the conversion value numbers, so in a certain period of time, and the thresholds. And I basically told the Claude, hey Claude, don't give me all of that. Just give me a general, straightforward, and simple to understand English, what went wrong, what is going right, and what we need to implement right away. Basically, what Claude told me was, number one, we are too profitable. We're running at a 10.8x ROAS, which is true. I mean, last 30 days, if we look at the overall ROAS right here, we can see ROAS by time is a 10.85x. There are no search campaigns at all, no brand, no non-brand, only dynamic search, which I was quite surprised to see that Claude does not believe a dynamic search campaign is actually a search campaign in general. But it said that it costs $49 per sale versus $24 account-wide. Basically, it's letting us know that the dynamic search campaign, which we have running right now, if we change it to just the enabled campaigns, is unideal, basically. Even though it's a cold traffic search campaign running at 8.3x ROAS, it's essentially not the best approach, according to Claude. And then it goes on further to say that one campaign is 58% of the spend, again, which is very true, because if we look right here, $64,000 went to the standard shopping campaigns, which is basically a cold traffic shopping campaign running at almost 11x ROAS. But in Claude's eyes, it's essentially this seemed to be sort of a negative thing to have going on. And then there were 2,100 products disapproved, 10% of the product catalog cannot be shown, which again, if we go on over to product diagnostics, we can see Claude has a point there. I mean, a lot of these products are out of stock, which of course Claude didn't really mention, but it just kind of looked at it as a lump sum approach, let us know that, hey, this is a problem in the account. And then finally, tracking as a whole, 2 purchase actions are flagged for cart data. Until that's fixed, product level numbers aren't trustworthy. So this was very interesting for me, because when I went over to conversions to summary to understand what Claude is trying to say, what I came to realize was Claude essentially was looking at the fact that it just said needs attention right here for both GA4 as well as a feed for a shopping ad, but it didn't realize that cart data needs attention does not necessarily mean that the conversion tracking is off. It could be as simple as the actual recent conversions for sold item IDs cannot be directly matched to the merchant center. And this makes sense because there's other avenues of sales that this brand has in the back end, because it is a large automotive brand with a big warehouse. People call in all the time to place orders and all sorts of these things. And there's basically a cross-funnel section in the back end, which Claude necessarily wasn't aware of. So it's not what Claude is mentioning is true, because it didn't have the data from meta ads, from the call rail in terms of what calls are coming in, so on and so forth, to kind of distinguish that. And most important of all, number 6 was essentially Claude saying the worst campaign is the single supplier one, essentially, which is this one right here, going after only one specific collection within the whole. And that was purely done from our perspective with the idea that this specific collection of products has a much higher margin than everything else, and it should be displayed in a different manner compared to everything else. But of course, Claude does not have all of the intricate details on the front end, which causes it to give us all of these things which are on the surface level going wrong. And for a normal brand owner that's not so head deep into Google Ads, on a surface level, this might seem very easy to kind of conclude that, hey, the current agency, the current team working on the account does not have a single clue of what's going on, because there are so many different errors, so many different problems going on within the account that essentially are not taken care of. But here's the thing that most brands don't realize, and what Claude essentially gets wrong. Claude is looking at everything from a one-dimensional view without truly understanding the business on a fundamental level and how things should actually be operating. Because see, the thing is, things like these where the break-even is a 4.9x, this is an arbitrary number Claude came up with, because the reality is, with all of the functionalities of this business in the back end, the big warehouse they have, the hundreds of people on the team that they have to ship these orders, to kind of source them, so on and so forth, the break-even goes at a much higher level than just a 5x. And again, Claude comes up with these numbers based on just arbitrary values, which it sees through the ad account, basically just taking the derivatives of what's normal in the industry. But what it fails to understand is that every brand has a custom approach. Every brand has a different margin for a lot of the products, which others in the same industry might seem to be revolving around. But as I dove a bit further into the Claude, giving it basically another chance to redeem itself, what I came to understand was the specific things Claude was mentioning to fix were, again, on the surface level, very straightforward. It told us to fix the cart data because obviously it found that issue. It actually told us to build a branded search campaign. I thought that was very interesting, because one of the main things that this brand owner did not want was branded influence. They wanted a lot of sales coming from cold traffic searches, and because this brand has over $9 million of data already, there's no reason to even have branded search in the mix. It also told us to fix the 9 products with promo text, 9 with wrong availability, which again, that's a very straightforward conclusion to come to. And finally, it said set customer retention value, it's blank, and Google is bidding for new customers with nothing on the other side. Essentially, it wants us to set some kinds of restriction on the bidding strategy. And it gave us a very clear layout, which I again told it to elaborate a bit more. It told us to launch that brand search campaign, the cart abandoner retargeting campaign. It wanted us to split the best performing shopping campaign, restructure it, not just spend more money, but restructure it in terms of which products are in there and which products deserve to be restructured. Because again, there's one product that's $68 versus another product that's $1,400. And then it told us to run a non-brand search campaign as well after that. But here's where things get a bit interesting, because the thing is, a lot of these things Claude mentioned, this brand owner before working with us had already implemented that from the start, because we actually started working with this brand in February of 2024. But if we look at the full year prior to that, so essentially January all the way to January end of 2024, we can see a lot of the things Claude mentioned were already in effect, because one of the biggest problems this brand had was over diversification of their product. They had way too many things going on, and as a result, a lot of their products were not getting the proper attention that they deserved, and a lot of the numbers here were too good to be true, because during that time, that's when conversion tracking was actually off, and that's when they were getting a lot of brand influence. So the entire strategy that Claude just mentioned, after it took 30 minutes to come up with, basically fell apart, because all of these things had been tried and tested way prior to us even beginning work on the accounts. And unfortunately, none of this had actually become fruitful for this brand, because a lot of this revenue, $18 million during this time that was supposedly reported, was over attributed to brand and stolen from other marketing channels. That was kind of the main intention of why we came in, and why after we started working together, kind of changed the entire trajectory for this brand. We started testing a lot of other things as well, but we kept things more on the cold traffic basis. As we can see, after we started working together, we launched a lot more campaigns. We can see all of these campaigns spending money, over 30 campaigns during that time. But what we realized was this approach of where Claude is mentioning splitting the campaign, having abandoned carts flows in place, having a brand search, non-branded search, we already did all of that already. And it's surprising to me that Claude did not catch that with all of these campaigns that were running during that time. All of this was essentially different collections this brand sells. There was a little bit of horizontal scaling going on as well. We were trying to go after different campaign types, anything from search to even YouTube and demand gen, which again fell flat for this brand. So what we came to realize starting 2025 was, hey, this brand just does not perform for all of these different things. So let's kind of simplify everything and make it run after only a few specific things. So we can see that from those 30 campaigns, we essentially cut everything in half in 2025. We only had about 10 to 15 campaigns running. And then we even went and simplified things a bit further to make it so in the last 30-day period, we just have 5 campaigns running at this point of time. Nothing more, nothing less, because after all of that testing which Claude is mentioning us to do right now, we came to the conclusion that, hey, a simple approach works best for this brand, even though on paper, it just doesn't make sense that one product, which is barely $64, is in the same exact campaign as a product that's $1,200. It just works out for this brand that's accumulated through hundreds and thousands of dollars worth of data, even over millions of dollars of data at this point. And there are over 18,000 SKUs active right now for this brand, which again, it just doesn't make sense that all of this can work in such a simple approach. But that's the reality of this brand. And that's kind of where AI is genuinely great for versus where it just sucks. And the fact is, what most brands don't understand when I'm doing audits for brands under my agency, which by the way, if you run a brand making over 50K a month in revenue, you need some extra help scaling profitably and consistently with Google Ads without relying on AI. Scan the QR code on the screen or click the first link in the description below to directly schedule a call with me, and let's see how we can potentially work together to make that happen. But what AI is good for is the balance between implementation versus understanding where things are going wrong. Because on the top level, AI was able to look at the hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars of data within a few minutes and come to the conclusion and give us a general solid idea of where the things are lacking, what we need to focus more on. And that's where AI is great. It keeps you credible, it keeps things consistent, and it detects things such as wastage of money, the speed of the analysis of everything, and even the reporting and the final drafts in check, because that means you're not relying on a team, you're not relying on your media buyers or your freelancers to give you data in a considerable amount of time, because AI can do that much faster than most people can. But that's the distinguishment. You need to have a real person who knows how these things work. You need to have a real person, a human behind the screen, understanding what you want for your brand versus what the reality is in terms of the campaigns, because AI does not understand the distinguishment, because AI is all about numbers and data. It lacks that human intelligence. It lacks that common sense that most human beings actually have. And that's where kind of the strategic approach of using AI as an analyst versus a strategist comes into play. You still need somebody who understands Google on a deeper level, or for that matter, any marketing platform, who understands your real demographics, ICPs, numbers, how they speak, what slang words they use, because that is what basically strategizes your campaigns. That's what gives your campaigns and your account as a whole direction. AI is there to kind of analyze things, make sure things are in the right direction, and spot the small intricate details which may have kind of fallen off of the human eye and been oversighted in normal time. Because if you don't know how a marketing platform works, because if you just blindly go in and follow AI, what will happen, and I've always said this throughout all of the AI videos I have on my channel, is AI will lead you to the wrong decisions. It will make you do things which on paper sound correct, because that's what AI is designed to do. It's designed to look at the data and on paper find solutions. But looking at historical data, looking at the intricate conversations you have, just kind of what's inside your brain even, that's the connection which AI lacks. And that's where analyst role is much better suited for Claude or any other AI you might be using versus an actual strategic role versus actual implementation based role. Which is why whenever we're doing audits of accounts and whenever we're actually looking at the data in the backend as well, we always let AI have read-only access. I never let AI go in, make changes even for this brand, because that can be one of the worst decisions you ever make for your brand. But again, if you run a brand making over 50K a month in revenue, you would rather get some extra help scaling your brand consistently and profitably to the next level, scan the QR code on the screen or click the first link in the description below to directly schedule a call with my team, and let's see how we can work together to make that happen.